feel like that's a hoax.
You know, he's 39.
I feel like that's a hoax.
Wow, he looks very different with his glasses off. But then again, so do I, you know?
That is true. You look very different.
The laws of cooking and how to break them. He was born in 84, so he is technically millennial. He's definitely not Gen Z, because I think, so it was, Boomer is 45 to like 60, or it's like 46 to like 64 or something.
Yeah.
And then like Xer is like 64 to like 80, and then Millennial is 81 to 97 or 98, and then Gen Z is like 97, 98 to like 2012 or something.
Well, it depends on different ones too, because on different ones you're a Gen Z.
Yes, there's this weird cutoff where people aren't exactly sure which specific year in the late 90s Gen Z starts. And so I often call myself a Zillennial because it's like I'm both Gen Z and Millennial. Yes, yes. Because some people will say 97 Gen Z, others will say like 95. In which case, I'm a Millennial if I was born 96, but then in some other people's standards, I'm Gen Z because I was born after 95. Yeah. Lovely math we have here.
Well, because in some, my mom is a young boomer, and then in others, she actually is like a Gen Xer. So it like it quite literally is at that point. It's like splitting hairs. It's like
Yeah.
After
No, you know, generational cohortism is so interesting because like. I know people might want to be, like, individual about it and be all like, nah, man, the typology is stupid, like, you know, just, like, have a conversation. And it's like, no, I get that totally, but, like, you know, it's interesting to sort of figure out what sort of era of history are you coming from? What's informing your values, you know? What informs, like, kind of the normativity and sense of, you know, like, different types of hoods in your life, like manhood, womanhood, childhood, adolescence, you know? The rites of passages, you know? I feel like, the fact of the matter is, I think age heavily influences a lot of this stuff, you know? In particular, not just age, in terms of your own stages of life, but what sort of era of history you're coming from. Because I feel like if you grew up with, you know, black and white TV, and you got to see it switch to that, from that to Technicolor, you know, that's a very different childhood than someone who played new Super Mario Bros. On their Nintendo DS, you know? And that's a very different world, you know? It's a very different world. And so I have a little bit of a silly fascination with generational cohortism. So, yeah.
I think the thing with like the 1996 people, I think it's like
You know, my people.
Yeah, I think it's so they want to be separated from Gen Z so bad, and it's like Gen Z is the generation making the most difference. Why are you so like?
I don't want to be separated. I want to be. I want to be both.
But if like, 1996 is only 2 years away from 1998. So it's like we would be older Gen Z. That's technically what we would be. But some people are like, oh, we're millennials, we're lamps, and it's like, dude, sure, if you just pick one. Like you're either like this or that, but like. I don't know, if I was someone born in 1996, I'd want to be closer to Gen Z and just get rid of the millennial part of it. Because, like, why try to exist?
I think the reason for that is, and it's not that you can't like music, whatever generation you are, but I feel like, you know, I was kind of raised on, like, Nirvana and like Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam, and those were like the three big grunge bands of like the '90s, which influenced a lot of like millennials. Like there's a part of me that has like a
So we got
yeah, I was sort of I grew up a little bit on a lot of like I guess like alternative rock and the '90s grunge rock and stuff, as well as '90s rap. Often called these days like underground rap or whatever. And like a lot of like the sort of funk alternative rock of like Rage Against the Machine and like stuff like that. Audio Slave with Chris Cornell, and obviously Soundgarden, Black Hole Sun, and that's like that to me is a specific, that sort of means a specific point in time, and that means sort of like a specific era.
But that doesn't mean it belongs to, like there are people who listen to like 60s, but you listen to the Beatles, but that doesn't make you a boomer.
Oh my God, people are playing Oblivion right now. Whoa. You're right. It doesn't make me a boomer, but you call me one if I listen to the Beatles, don't you?
I don't like the Beatles. I feel like there's a lot of things wrong with the Beatles that a lot of people don't look at. The Beatles stole. Like just like Elvis, they stole from black artists and got popular.
Yeah, that kind of checks out. Oh, another thing I wanted to say though, I just feel like a lot of the '90s shaped me. Because I grew up on Goosebumps. I grew up on Clerks. I actually started to watch Clerks. Did you ever seen Clerks? Jay and Silent Bob?
Yes, but a lot of 90s kids grew up on that. That's not specific to 1996 people. I grew up on Goosebumps.
No, sure. I think we did. I think a lot of 90s carried over into the 2000s. No doubt. It feels like at some point, like, there's, like, a part of it where, like, I feel like at some point, like, I talk to certain people of a certain age and a certain age bracket, and they don't seem to be as informed and as raised on the same stuff I was. And in particular, it has something to do with, not entirely to do with, but something to do with the fact that they are younger. And that's going to happen, right? Like, that's going to happen. Like, that's going to, like, like, I'm not, like, for instance, because I was born in 1996 and not in, like, the 1700s, I'm not influenced by Beethoven and Bach, because those were classical, literally called what's called classical music.
Bands ever.
Yeah. I was born in the 90s, so I'm not going to be influenced by Beethoven and Bach, right? Not to say, obviously, like, orchestra and band kids, they love the classical classical German artists. They know where it's at. In fact, there's studies that come out that say, like, classical... every few years there's always a study that comes out that's in, like, an article that says, like, classical German music is always good for playing to, like, plants in a garden. That stuff still always comes out every so often.
I think at some point there are generational distinctions. Like, even though people want to say 1996 is millennial, you grew up on 90s, like, late 90s shit. Like...
Yeah.
There's a cutoff. Like, you're not a millennial. Like, you're in the Gen Z late 90s era.
So fair. Oh, I have a question for you. Then. Because what sort of meaning would you give to this? So I grew up. Let's just say this. Teen Titans original versus Teen Titans Go. I'm more of a Teen Titans original kind of person. That should tell you what my age range is,
Yeah.
Because I feel like now there's a lot of, Teen Titans Go has been on Cartoon Network for, like, a long time now. Yeah. And a lot of the younger crowd, I think, didn't grow up with Teen Titans OG.
Which is fair.
Which is, it's fair, of course. And so it's like, well, what meaning would you give to that, right? Because I feel like that if I would talk to someone who would be considerably young these days, and they would only really be like, yeah, I've seen like, if I talked to a young person, they would probably have it in their norms and in their, like, general milieu. If I asked them, hey, have you seen Teen Titans? I bet you they would probably be like, oh, Teen Titans Go, right? Yeah, I have, and not like the OG Teen Titans by Sam Register and stuff, and Hi Hi Puffy, I'm Yumi. So, yeah, like that's what I mean. Here's a good internet distinction. Forget about generational cohortism. Teen Titans OG versus Teen Titans.
Okay,
you know?
so here's the deal.
Yeah.
Because people are like, it's one of the things where I think that every person has such a something so different, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have watched both Go and original Teen Titans. When I think of Teen Titans, I will think of the